Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. My name is Tuffner and today we're going to be talking a lot more about Titanfall. Now, I felt I had to wait a couple of days till after the initial release of the game itself, just so I could kind of sink enough hours into it to kind of give an actual kind of valid overview and opinion about, kind of what I thought of the game. So, because this is kind of why I made the channel, was just so I could do this particular game, and all the videos before this weren't necessarily practice as such. I mean, I enjoyed doing them, but still, they were kind of just to kind of get me ready for this. So what I'm going to do is, the format isn't going to change at all, but all I'm going to do is, this part right here, part 1, is going to be the cons, the kind of the bad and the ugly of Titanfall, and the second video, which will hopefully be longer, is going to talk about all the things I love about Titanfall. And kind of before I go even further, it's just, I need to kind of point out that regardless of what I say in this video, I still do really love Titanfall and I believe in Titanfall, and I want to see it succeed, and I want to see, sequels and the franchises in general just kind of get better and better, really, because I do believe in Titanfall and I think it's a fantastic game, and I want everybody I know to get their hands on it, really, because it is truly fantastic. Anyway, on with the video. Right, well, I suppose the first thing we have to talk about really is the lacklustre campaign, and regardless of what your opinions might be, the campaign is weak. It is. It's a weak patch on the actual multiplayer framework of the game. I mean, you consider the length of the thing and the fact that there's literally no narrative, no story arc, no character development. It's a poor campaign. I wouldn't even call it a campaign. If you're not familiar with how it's worked, basically there's a small, I'm not even going to call it a plot, a subplot really, because there's more plot going on within the actual multiplayer of the game's story, and basically there's a small piece of exposition before and after, and sometimes in the middle of multiplayer mode fights. So for instance, you'll have a small cutscene before a round of attrition, and it will give you a very small piece of story, a general overview of what's going on and what's going to be happening within the game. Something that makes very little difference in the grand scheme of things, and most of the time you'll completely forget what you're meant to be doing, and you'll just focus purely on the actual game mode itself and playing it and trying to do as well as possible within it. And this is where it falls short, really. It tries to give you large chunks of exposition, and excuse me. Sorry guys, I was going to cut that, but I listened back to it and it just sounded funny. Anyway, back on with it. Yeah, and it tries to, it feeds you these small pieces of story whilst you're playing the game, and you don't really notice it. I mean, the most you'll notice is the character head pop up in the corner of the screen, and it just mouthing words, because there's so much going on. As you know, if you've played the game, you've played the multiplayer, there is so much going on at one time. Like, there's always something to do in Titanfall. There's never a dull moment. And because of the way that combat works and how fast-paced and twitchy it is as a shooter, it's there's always somewhere to go. You're always fighting something or somebody. So trying to feed you this story whilst this is happening. Oh Jesus! I think someone just got shot. It's actually fireworks. Oh jeez, this video is not going well. Anyway, yeah, and it just doesn't work really as a story method. It's one of the poorest I've ever seen executed. It's so ridiculous, and maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on it here, and I'm not saying they promised better, because all they did say was that they were going to try and intertwine multiplayer and story together, which was a fantastic concept, and it really could have worked, and they could have done something really great here. And I'm partial to kind of believe that it was EA trying to push the game out a little bit too soon, or maybe telling them to focus less on the campaign and more on the actual multiplayer. And that kind of leads me on to my next point, really. Aside from the campaign being kind of lacklustre, the game in general feels that way too. For instance, it's kind of like, there's a severe lack of weapons, and that might just be me being biased in terms of the fact that I've been playing Call of Duty and Battlefield and a variety of other shooters, including Loadout. If you've not watched my previous videos, go back and watch them now. And yeah, I mean, maybe we've just been spoiled the last 5 years, but it does feel as though there's not a severe lack of weapons, but like, I mean, fair enough, there is a weapon class for each person out there. Say if you're a shotgun type of guy who likes to bowl around and be really fast and just a kind of quick class, if you will. There's that for you to play, and there's the smart pistol for people who don't know how to aim properly, and no offence to people who use the smart pistol there. And there's just a general class for assault rifle and stuff like that, and you can tinker with everything, so you can kind of get a feel for your own class and make your own, but it's going to be one of those systems whereby maybe in a week's time, even I was going to say a week's time, there is going to be an optimal build, and everybody's really going to use that. I have to say that the SMG, the first SMG you unlock, and the assault rifle are probably the most overpowered primary weapons in the game that I've found so far. I mean, the shotgun is great, but for people who can't particularly aim, like me, I'm not a very good aimer, those two weapons are kind of preferable in that sense, and there are optimal builds there. You know, there's no denying that some builds are better than others, and that's lets the combat down slightly. Other thing is just the abilities. There's not many abilities. There's not very much of everything, really. I mean, particularly the modes. I mean, on a game that sells itself on its multiplayer and almost totally admits that there's no campaign at all there to be had, there needs to be more multiplayer modes. There's just not enough. And it surprises me that they were selling it as this huge multiplayer experience, and there's only 5 modes. 6 if you count the variety pack, but no. There's 5 individual modes, and none of them offer anything particularly special. Attrition probably offers the most, but it's basically, you know, it's a points match, it's a team deathmatch, but you have to kill the minions as well as the pilots. It's really quite, I wouldn't say poor, because each mode is fantastic. I kind of have to point that out. Each mode feels amazing, and the one saving grace in terms of variety are the maps. There's 15 different maps, and I wouldn't say that they all feel different, but they all feel really great. Like, there's some that feel the same as others, but because the ones that they feel the same as are so well crafted, and you can tell and you can feel, you know, that Respawn really did put a lot of effort into the aesthetic of each map and how they plan out and how they, you know, would benefit you being in a Titan and a pilot at the same time. You know, that's fantastic, and that's, like I say, is the saving grace. But all this leads me to my next point, and probably my biggest gripe with it, really, and that's the price point. Now, a lot of people will disagree with me here, but I know there's a few people who kind of agree at the same time that this game shouldn't be marketed at regular AAA price on release. If you buy it on Origin, for instance, let me just get Origin up now so I can give you the price point. Sorry guys, I had to check the price on Origin there. It's actually retailing at the moment for £45, which is the equivalent of about, I don't know, $65 to $70 in the US. Jesus, bloody fireworks. And that's excluding the season pass, which is, you know, a further £15, I believe. Let's just check the price on that. It's not giving me a price. Oh well, that's okay. So I would highly recommend that people shop elsewhere. I bought mine somewhere else. I don't believe I'm allowed to disclose where I bought it from, but regardless, it rhymes with Blamazon. And I got mine fairly cheap there. Not too much cheaper, but it, you know, cheaper than £40. I'll give it that much. And I'd say, okay, I paid £35 for it, there we go. And that was just, it wasn't a hard copy, that was a digital code that you had to input into Origin and, you know, all that guffing. And I'd say that's a fair price. £35, you know, $50 is about right for the price. You know, I mean, that extra tenner does make all the difference when you consider that it's lackluster, crappy. I'm just going to say it's a piece of shit campaign that, you know, literally no effort has been put into, and, you know, a variety of game modes which aren't very distinct, and there's not many of them to begin with. You know, it's to ask full £40 AAA price for that is a little bit, you know, no, you can't do that. I mean, you consider a game like Loadout, which, you know, doesn't have the largest selection of maps, but has all that customizability, so much variation. Admittedly, it doesn't have a campaign, you know, but neither does Titanfall in that regard. And that kind of brings me on to another point which annoys me: locking those Titans behind a paywall. Oh, sorry, a paywall. What am I talking about? A paywall, a campaign wall, if you will, is a little bit, you know, a little bit crappy. I feel sorry for the people that are going to buy this in a year's time when no one's going to be playing the campaign, and they'll probably come up with a microtransaction solution to that, knowing EA. But, you know, it's just, it feels a bit, you know, like I didn't want to play the campaign a second time through, no matter, even if it was the opposing side of the I think it was the militia the second time through to unlock the ogre. And I didn't want to play it. Like, I literally was dragging myself through it, and there's no reason why it should feel like that, because it is exactly the same as playing multiplayer. But it was the fact that I wasn't playing the multiplayer modes that I would like to play. Like, I prefer Capture the Flag and Hardpoint. I will always play those over Attrition and Pilot Hunter, is it? And Last Titan Standing, because they're just, you know, I prefer to work as a team and feel like I'm contributing something. And not to say that those modes don't make you feel that way, but it's just my preferences as a player. And yeah, it just felt like I was being dragged through this really kind of boring, non-important thing just to unlock something that was essential to the game. So yeah, I think I've kind of ragged on it enough now. Don't get me wrong, guys, I really think the game's fantastic, and I've spent so many hours playing it the last 2 days. Like, you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm very, very tired. I was up till 3 o'clock last night playing it, and I believe I'm about level 45 now. And I've unlocked most of the gear, and I think the cap is at 50. I think it is, by which point you get the option to prestige quotation marks and do the whole thing again. But I don't think I'll be prestiging because it's just not my type of thing in games, and yeah, it just to go through all that again to unlock so little, it's just no. So yeah, I've ragged on the game enough now, guys. It's taken me out of me to do that, really, because like I say, I do really love the game and it's fantastic, and I believe in Titanfall, and I just feel like they could have done a lot more, specifically with the campaign. You know, I could have let everything else go if they'd have just put in, even if it was just a single player campaign, you know. A 5-hour single player campaign where they kind of gave a little bit more, well, they kind of fleshed the story out, really, because it did genuinely interest me, the story of the Titans and, you know, the futuristic world and how they've folded space over on itself so they can essentially not time travel, but walk through space and time to you know, far distant reaches of the galaxy and whatnot. And yeah, it really interested me, and I would like to have seen that a little bit more fleshed out, whereby in this, you know, it just felt like you were just plunked in the middle, and, you know, there was nothing else there, really. It was just a kind of story development from one perspective and then the other, and it was rather boring and blah. Anyway, I'm going to stop now because I feel like my soul is dying a little bit inside. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I do apologise if, you know, you disagree. Actually, I don't apologise if you don't kind of agree with anything. Just put it in the comment section below. I'd love to generate some interesting discussion. If you disagree or agree with anything I've said, you know, leave a like or a dislike, or, you know, just your general comments of appreciation or, you know, disappreciation. Is that a word? I think I've said that before. Regardless. Anyway, I'm going to leave you now. I've taken more than enough of your time. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I shall see you in part 2, where I douse the game in my semen. Thank you very much for watching, guys. See you later. Ta-ra.